Greetings. I'm Bruce Laurel, Executive Director of Chamber Music Tulsa. For several years, the program committee and the board have expressed an interest in commissioning new chamber music, but it never rose above the level of discussion and into action until the Miró Quartet contacted us to see if we would be part of a consortium of presenters to co-commission a new string quartet by composer Kevin Puts. The board enthusiastically agreed. This video introduction by Kevin and the Miró Quartet is both beautiful and moving, and I can't wait to hear the full performance on October 25th. We are grateful to the Mid-America Arts Alliance for funding for education activities, and to the Oklahoma Arts Council, the National Endowment for the Arts, and Arts Alliance Tulsa. So enjoy this video introduction to Kevin Puts' new string quartet, Home.
Hello, I'm Kevin Puts, the composer of the work Home for String Quartet. This is the fourth string quartet that I've written. The first was written back in 1999 for the Ching Quartet, and this is the third piece I've written for the amazing Miró Quartet. The string quartet can be a very daunting medium for the composer. I think due in large part because of the enormous body of brilliant repertoire going back, hundreds of years. And I think every composer thinks, well, what could I possibly add to this body of work? How could I involve the string quartet as instruments in a way that hasn't been done? What could I say expressively that is new? And for me, usually when I'm working on a string quartet, I feel there needs to be some kind of story or something the piece is about. And in the case of this piece, I started it and I had several movements written. They were based on some poetry, which I love. But there was something about the type of piece it was, which felt a little, not trivial, but like it wasn't saying something that maybe could be more important, that might mean something to people, especially considering all the things that are going on in the world. And so I decided to start over, and I was walking around in the streets in New York, going somewhere, and I thought, well, how do I really want to start this piece? And I had a sort of a sonic vision in my head for something which was very warm and rich and comforting. And I thought it could even be in like C major, which if you imagine the low strings of the cello tuned to C and G, same with the viola, the low open G strings of the violins and the E string on top. I thought maybe I could even retune the quartet to for their open strings to all be notes of C major triads, and so the piece could resonate in that key in a way that that the normal tuning of the strings might not resonate. And so I started thinking about that, particularly that music and what I was hearing and what it kind of signified to me. And it felt kind of like an idealized version of home, of like what home means to many of us in the best, when it's, in the best of possible circumstances. So I started thinking about that. I started thinking about the immigration crisis all over the world and the kind of horrifying photos and stories of families displaced and looking for a new place to live. Syrian refugees on boats arriving on beaches, exhausted and uncertain of their futures. And I thought that is a reality that I have never faced, and I thought I could never express that feeling, and it's because it's not something that I've experienced, but perhaps I could do something this abstractly about the notion of feeling homeless or feeling unmoored, or like there's no ground under you, and the search for something stable and real. And so that's how the piece was conceived. In the first section of this piece, you're going to hear a very simple melody played by the first violin with a simple drone under it. Eventually this melody gets repeated and involves the entire string quartet. It becomes much richer, very warm and hopefully comforting. And then you hear another phrase, a sort of answer to the first phrase. And the whole first section of the piece, maybe 2 or 3 minutes, is just made of those two phrases alternating with one another. My aim was for the quartet to sound very full, almost as if you're hearing more than just 4 players. At the conclusion of this opening section, there is a kind of transitional music, which involves harmonics and pizzicatos and a kind of polyphonic texture as the quartet gradually sort of loses its way and the music begins to be more animated and transitional. Eventually, it finds its way to a very quick kind of a scherzo in 12/8, groups of 3 notes played very fast, almost dangerously fast. And everything about this middle section of the piece is different from what you hear at the opening. It's fast, it's unstable harmonically. You never feel that you have a firm footing because the music is always changing, always transitioning, always doing something that you didn't expect. eventually the quartet finds its way back to the same melodies that you hear at the very opening of the piece. However, these melodies feel very different because they have been in some ways affected by what's happened in the middle of the piece. The tempo is still quick. The harmony is still shifting under this melody. There is not just a simple melody and accompaniment, but an actual counterpoint of this initial melody that you hear. And so for me, this was like a redefinition of home, that what we thought of as stability and comfort has been challenged and is now something new.
The Miró Quartet and Kevin Puts have enjoyed a very long musical collaboration together, beginning in 2007. In that year, the string quartet Credo was written, and still is to this day one of the most often played and most often requested works in our repertoire. The second work he wrote for us was a concerto for string quartet and chamber orchestra, and the third work is this one written in 2019 entitled Home. We enjoy Kevin's language, we enjoyed his musical language, and this work is no different. But the thing that really draws us to Kevin's work is that he is indeed an activist, and he does this through his music. Not one of the pieces that he's ever written was written in a vacuum. He communicates all his values and everything he believes through his music, and that is the sincerity of the music is what really draws us to him as a composer.